Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as part of our ongoing Epicor educational series. We really appreciate the continued support. I'm Steve Burns with Crawford Software, and I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by Crawford Software's founder and president, Steve Carr.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, folks, today is part 2 of a 3-webinar series that will highlight the value of the Crawford Software standard solutions that we develop and sell to Epicor customers. This webinar will focus on the features of product lifecycle management. And we do have some folks still logging in, so I did create a poll for us today. I will open up with just an opening poll. And the question is, would you be interested in having full control of the part master and its use in the system? That's part of what Steve will show. I just am always interested, as we are always interested, in finding out what offerings bring the most value to our customers. So if you'll take just a couple minutes, we'll let that run for a minute or so. And while we're waiting for folks to respond, Steve, we've been building standard solutions for some time now. What started that? Was that customer driven, or was that something you thought about, or is it something a little of both?
It's a little bit of both. Some customers have made some requests, and also just I've been working with ERP systems for a very long time, years than I care to admit, and just seeing an opportunity to improve the functionality that Epicor has, where I feel that they've probably brought it 80% of the value there.
Sure.
They just a little bit more enhancement gives it just much more value for the customer, such as this with the product lifecycle, where instead of just putting a part on hold and blocking activity, we're giving the customer the capability to isolate transactions, determine if it's a warning or an error, and just give them much more control of introducing and ending a part master or a product in the system.
That's great. And from my perspective, I've seen how much our customers appreciate that and really do like these standard solutions that we build. So it looks like everybody has answered the question or the poll. I'm going to go ahead and close it, and then we can just share the results. Yeah, sure. It looks like 100%, right? Would like to have that ability to manage that part master. So yeah, that makes sense, right?
They're here.
Right, exactly. So let me just go ahead and hide that. Before I give the turn over to Steve, I'll just give you a quick background on who we are. Crawford Software for ERP trusted advisors to the manufacturing sector. That's who we are. That's what we do. Our goal is to improve operational efficiencies. Now, that may be if you're a new customer. We help customers evaluate, select, and implement best-of-breed ERP systems like Epicor. And from there, we help them build customizations and maximize the efficiency of that system for them. And if they're an existing Epicor customer, we do lots of services, mainly around business process reviews, business process improvements, implementing new modules that will help them. And a lot over the last couple of years, we've done lots and lots of upgrades as Epicor has moved from kind of 9 to version 10. So that's something that we do on a daily basis around here. But our goal is to maximize the efficiency of your operations. We find that today customers are asked to do even more with less, right? And the software allows them to do that. We want to be able to maximize the value of the software that you already own. We hear a lot that I didn't realize Epicor could do that. Oh, I didn't realize the software had that functionality. So our expertise is really, again, is to show customers the best way to use Epicor to drive efficiencies that drive costs down and profitability up. So how do we do that? Well, we've been implementing ERP systems within manufacturing environments for 25 years. You may note that we've only been in business for 17. So what that means is that we have customers that are with us 25 years later from when Steve had an independent consulting practice prior to incorporating Crawford Software. So to me, that is the definition of a trusted advisor, right? We have 35 consultants worldwide. Everybody on our team has over 15 years experience, so this is very much a boutique shop. We focus on 2 major areas, right? Functional. So we have a great group of consultants that deal with production planning, scheduling, materials management, product config. Then we have a whole group of finance folks who deal with AP, AR, GL, all the way through asset management and CRM as well. Now, on the other side of that house, we have a technical group, and that technical group does system design and setup, as well as ongoing monitoring and support of the environment. And one of the unique features of our company is that we cross-train these functional and technical teams so that when we're doing an implementation, we can see a well-rounded perspective of what needs to get accomplished because everybody understands the other side of the fence. And one of the things that we offer that make us fairly unique is a dedicated offshore team, not just part-time. These are dedicated folks to Crawford Software. And that allows us to offer our customers a cost savings alternative. So if we're doing a big upgrade, we've got tasks that can be handled offshore, we have that option. Now, you'll always talk with a US-based project manager, but it is one way to save costs if you so choose. And it also gives some flexibility from the standpoint of a lot of those folks work off hours, so as we're doing upgrades, we're not doing it in peak production times. We can do them at night, over the weekend. Again, providing you that flexibility if you want to. One of the really cool things about what we do is that we install and run every version of Epicor on our internal systems. We go all the way back to Vista and Vantage. We run every version of Epicor 9 and 10. What that allows us to do is to perform your upgrade on our servers, right? That's very positive from a security standpoint, as well as allows us to do internal testing and validation before anything goes live in your production environment. And the last thing I think makes us very unique is that we build standard solutions and sell standard solutions that help customers maximize the efficiency of Epicor. They're enhancements. They're available to all Epicor customers. We have many customers that are on them, that procure them. And really, it's about overall process improvement, right, and specific functionality improvement within Epicor ERP. So, and that's a segue. So that what I'll do is turn over to Steve Carr, and he'll show us the product lifecycle management standard solutions that we have. So, Steve, I'll go ahead and make you the presenter.
All right, let me just tidy up my desktop.
You got it? Tell me when, sir.
One second. Let's grab a couple of these and open them so we're all set to go inside them. You want to be able to show people stuff.
Sure.
And purchase order. Great. Trying to get all now I gave away the plot so people know what I'm going to be showing. All right, yeah.
All right.
All right, everybody. I apologize for the moment while I just go ahead and get things a little bit prepped up so we're all set to go. This out of the way, just meter. Let me show my screen and get over here. We should be able to note this. There it is. So the PowerPoint is up right now. Want to go through the agenda today and give you a highlight and overview of what the topics are today and what we're going to go through and to go from there. And hopefully we'll have an informative session for everyone and I won't confuse anyone. So if we go ahead and move forward, the agenda today. So as a starting point, first thing I want to do is just what is product lifecycle management? And this is not meant to be an APIX training or an APIX certification or anything like that. This is just a common line of how we've defined it, what we want this term to mean when we're talking about the Crawford Software standard solution that's available for Epicor ERP 9 and 10. Okay, that's all that's meant to be, not a big long one there. Then we want to go through a functionality review. I will go through a few slides that talk about what is the maintenance and setup involved in getting this module installed in your system and working with it. Then we'll go through a little bit an overview of what ERP transactions have been updated with this functionality enhancement that we're providing to you. And then we'll go through and show you an example of one of the product life cycles that we include as part of the solution when you purchase from us. There are sample product life cycles not meant to be the perfect final solution for your business and your business requirements. It is meant to be something to start you off and adjust and make it work for your business model. But instead of starting with a blank slate, we've got a few examples out there of different ones we've done for different customers in different business models, so you have something to start with. Then we'll go ahead and go through a system demo. I think a lot of this is easier to explain by actually showing you the transactions in the system and how they work versus trying to explain it with a PowerPoint, which can be very difficult to put into words, which could take 20 words and it'll take 2 screens and 2 clicks. So we'll go through that. After we go through the demo, we'll come back, cover what the process is like for the installation, setup, and support of these solutions, brief highlight of some of the other solutions that we have available, and then we'll open up for questions and answers regarding what we've shown. So hopefully that sets a nice agenda for today. I think we'll be able to get through that in the allotted time, probably a little bit earlier, and hopefully we'll have some good time for answer questions from anyone. All right. So product lifecycle, PLC for short. What is product lifecycle management? And what we mean by that term as far as this product and what we're doing here is the ability to control and restrict the usability of a part with a warning or an error in Epicor's ERP system. So think of it as you're doing a transaction related to a part master, whether you're adding it to a bill of material, you're trying to add it to a purchase order, you're trying to do a purchase order receipt. Each one of those are distinct events, and you really ideally want to have distinct control over how those are done if the product is in different life cycles. If it's just being proposed and still in the design phases versus it's in a pre-release versus it's in a quality hold versus it's in end of life and winding down. Each one of those events should be a little bit different in what you will and will not allow or want to have the system allow the end user to do, and that's what we've brought that level of control to you here. The reason codes are set up with the capability of making a pop-up either as an error or as a warning, or if you leave it blank, nothing happens at all. Standard Epicor ERP functionality works as exists. We've brought the solution to 2 different levels on the part master. You can put it on the central part, impacts everything across the board within that company code, or you can set it at the site level and have different situations where you might want to be transferring it from one site to another, but you don't want to ship it out the door. So you have a little bit of control to do both of those. As I said, a good example would be something that's a new part under development, new part introduction, NPI, lots of terms for that, or something that's going through a design change, or being discontinued, where you want to start getting more information to the users ahead of time. You want to stop buying components for it, different activities there. So that's the intention of this module and what it's meant to do for you as far as functionality. PLC Setup Transactions. So there's really only 3 main driving transactions that set up the functionality within the system the way you need it to work. The first one in that process is the reason codes. So on the reason code maintenance, attached to the reason types part hold. So if you've been in these screens before, you know that when you go into reason code maintenance within Epicor, the secondary prompt is what type of reason. We've attached this all to the part hold master, and it'll make more sense why we did that in a couple of slides going forward and when we go through the demo. But we added a whole new tab and a whole new set of functionality. And this level of functionality is a control for every transaction that has a part master associated with it. So whether it be a shipment, an inventory transfer, adding it to a method of manufacturing, adding it to a job, adding it to a master production schedule, miscellaneous transaction, contracts, purchasing, sales orders, quotes, all of them are covered within this functionality. And you have the capability for each one of these transactions to define when, as an example, let's start with the one that's highlighted here, customer shipment entry. What that is translating to from the code that you see there is when this part, when a part master has this code on it, this one's being 10P, and it's the one I'm going to use in my example. If you go in and you try to enter this part number or that part number that I've flagged that way on a customer shipment, an error message is going to pop up telling you why you can't add it to the customer shipment and canceling the transaction. Same idea with purchase order entry, except now it becomes a warning. So you get the pop-up warning, this part is on such and such type of a hold, but you're allowed to press OK to continue, and the transaction can be booked. So that's the difference between an error and a warning, pretty standard functionality. Or you can leave it blank, in which case there's no changes to standard Epicor functionality and processing in those transactions. And again, hopefully that was clear. It might be, I think it will be definitely much clearer when I go through an example in the system in a minute. The other one that we've put into play is a user account maintenance. That's the second transaction that's available. And on this transaction, excuse me, we are setting who is allowed to remove the part on hold indicator. And that part on hold indicator, you want to limit who can take it off, because if you put it there for a quality hold situation, you only want someone in the quality organization to take it off. So that's what this maintenance transaction is doing. Who has the capability to remove that indicator and basically release the part from any type of a hold or restricted transaction processing. The final transaction as part of the setup process is the part master itself. So on the part master itself, both at the central level and at the site level, we've expanded upon the existing Epicor functionality. It may not look it on this screen, but the on hold, the date, and the reason code are all sitting there in the lower right corner. That is pretty much standard functionality from the look and feel, but it's all in custom fields that we have created because we've duplicated that same functionality down to the site level, allowing you to have even more control. You can leave it open at the central level, but only certain sites are allowed to ship it, or different variations of that activity. We've brought it to more functionality, and that's why we've had to move it away from the standard on-hold functionality that's there. All right, so those are your setup items, and again, when I go through the system and show you on the transaction, I think it'll be a little easier to understand, a little easier to follow when we actually pull up and interactively go through it during the system process. All right, moving on to the agenda. Next thing I wanted to do is give you a summary of the transactions that have been updated with this new functionality. Again, everything that could possibly have a part master associated with it, whether it's a inventory-related transaction or a master data-related transaction, we have gone in and taken and put the user exits in and all the coding required to go against our enhanced features, both at the site and at the central level, and appropriately display a warning or an error to the end user as you've defined on those reason codes. So customer shipment entry, drop shipments, all of the issuing materials, everything related to purchasing, everything related to just a quantity adjustment, returning materials, returning assemblies or materials, sales orders, quotes, RMA processing. Actually, that's one that I missed on this screen right now. RMA processing is covered and is included. So when you go to create an RMA, as you're adding the part, you can block it from coming in on an RMA, or at least give a warning message that identifies to people it's in some type of a state and maybe should go to a quarantined or a separate inventory location when it is received. And again, transfer orders for moving things into site amongst your own company code inside the Epicor ERP system. Okay. All of these have been updated and all of these have been tested and validated, the engineering workbench included, as you're creating a new, if you're creating a new bill of material for that part, or you're trying to add a particular part to an existing bill of material, the warnings and errors will kick in and either allow you or not allow you to build it up accordingly. Okay. And again, anyone that has more detailed questions and wants to know the functionality, easier to do a one-on-one discussion than go through every single one of these and how they react in a webinar of about an hour. All right. The next thing we wanted to do is just give a sample of a product lifecycle status. This is one of the ones that we include in the template when we do the installation and setup after customers purchase the solution. And in this one, it's a combination. So we've got 10, 20, 30, 40. That's just because it's a logical flow for our mindset, but it really doesn't mean there's any limitations. It doesn't have to go from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50. It's just a normal nomenclature and fits inside of something of a medical device functionality. It's also got some statuses in here that are showing features that are available in release 2.0. So what we're looking at right now is release 1.5, or excuse me, 1.0 of the product. 1.5 has some new features and functionality that's being rolled out, and 2.0 is actually in the process of going through beta testing, which has even more. And I'll give you a highlight in a second about that. So 10 being a proposal, an example of that would be something that's a new product being proposed, be it manufacturing or purchased. And you might set everything to, for purchase, you might set everything to an error except for a purchase order and a purchase requisition and a receipt from a purchase order. So those three transactions can be set to a warning. user still gets some idea that this is in a limited state or it's on a proposal state, but we don't let them add it to a bill of material. We don't add it to a job. We don't do anything with it. Limited release, it's just what it says. It's just a limited release where it's just an indication that's coming through a customer. And this was meant more for a combination with the allocated quantity in some of the other functionality we've done for other customers and other software solutions also, where we have a limited amount of inventory that's been created, so it's in that first sellable stages, but we want to allocate it. So only certain customers are allowed to buy it, and they're only allowed to buy a certain amount of quantity. That's features that are functionality that we're building up in the 2.0, and it's being tested right now, that there's an indicator on the customer along with the quantity, and they can only those customers flagged appropriately can buy the part, and they only buy up to a certain total quantity. Sellable is number 40, moving right here in the center of the screen. That's pretty much the way we typically set that up coming out of the box. Is there's no blocks, there's nothing going on, but we want to always have a flag on the part master so it gives people an idea where it is in the life cycle status and the process flow. Quality hold, that's basically exactly what it says when we put the part on quality hold. Now that's also been added with new functionality in version 1.5, where there are two more additional checkboxes that now go out and say, do you want to update any jobs associated with that part master where it's either being used as a component or it's being used as a top level symbol being built. And we will put those jobs on hold to stop any inventory transactions from those occurring any further. If it's truly a real quality, it needs to not only affect the inventory that's out there, but any WIP that's going on. Phase out, non-sellable, again, just terms, and you control behind the scenes what you want it to do. We have two discontinueds in this sampling because one is with a replacement, one is without replacement. 90 with replacement, something you might have the complementary products pop up, give the customer service person a note that says, hey, this is on a discontinuation, but then they go ahead and they look at the replacements and they can make a suggestion to the customer. Without replacement, it's again more, we do it two of them more for an informational message to help customer service when they're taking an order. That's why they're there. And they would go ahead and tell the customer that product has been discontinued and there will be no replacement for it. Same idea and concept with a 900 end of life versus a 999 permanent end of life. We've had that type of a situation working with customers where it might have been a legal reason or some other event that has caused it to become end of life. So 900 end of life again and 999 permanent end of life are meant to be more visual cues. 900 end of life, we typically look at that as something that if a request came in, we might consider spinning it back up, remanufacturing it for a customer, redoing what's necessary to meet a customer's requirement. 999 permanent end of life is more of, again, a visual indicator to be a flag to customer service. Don't even offer it. It's been put on end of life due to some other reason, and basically we don't want to, and we will not make it again. We will not bring it back. And like I said, we've had that type of a situation more with there was a legal reason or some other recall information while we had to take the product off the market. So that's a couple of examples. Again, there's two or three that are in the product solution that we'll talk about and work with you during the setup and installation process to help get it right for your business and your business requirements. All right, so enough of my talking. Let's try and actually look at the system, and hopefully that'll clarify any questions you might have during the overview there. If not, at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A, and I'll be happy to try and address any questions you might have there that I didn't get through here. So we'll just run them through the exact same process that we talked about. The first one is the easiest one to work with. That's the user maintenance. And it's not true user maintenance in the fact of, when you think about it, user security within Epicor. This is a transaction that we've created, and it's really just one checkbox. You identify the users that are allowed to take that part hold indicator off the part master. We've got authorization checks in place. If this user doesn't have that flag set, we're not going to let them remove the flag on the part master. So hopefully that's pretty clear. It's a very straightforward one in going forward. As a clarification too, just in case anyone is curious, I don't know if we talked about earlier, but we'll mention it too. This is available in all the 9s and all the 10s as we go forward. All right. The next thing that we had on the list as far as the setup process was looking at the reason code maintenance. And again, this might make more sense now. Let me make it nice and big for everybody. So what we've done is we've done reason type is part hold, reason code is 10P, And we come to the new tab that we've created for this reason code, and you can see this is where you're setting all the controls. So all those transactions that I talked about, and RMA processing is right there, so I wasn't making that up. I had missed it on the list, but it is there. This is where you set the control, and this is where the real bread and butter of the solution is, and the functionality is its most robust. What you're determining here is when I try to enter something on a customer shipment, I get an error message if this part has a 10P indicator, either at the site or at the central level. If it has a 10P on it and you try to create a purchase order for it, you just get a warning pop up, and you're allowed to press continue and keep processing, complete the transaction that you would normally want to do. And if you leave it blank, because those are the only three choices you have in this, and I'll go ahead and pick on RMA processing since I was there earlier and I talked about that was the only three choices you have. You can either set it to an error, set it to a warning, or leave it as blank. Nothing else is going to be accepted in the processing, and that's where all of the downstream functionality is thriving off of to go through that. So I'll put this one back to the way it was, just out of curiosity, but you can see. So what comes to the customer, as far as once these have been set, are tied to how it is defined on the part master. So you set the reason code with what reaction you want to be based on the description you've identified. So this one I said it's a proposed part purchased. It's a new part, basically a new part introduction. So in that process, I would normally want to let things happen for POs and PO suggestions and purchase requisitions and even a receipt. That's why I've driven them to a warning. But everything else I don't want to have happen. I don't want to use it in a job. It's not ready yet. It's not released. That's the meaning behind the process, and how you use that Lego building blocks to get the flow that you want to go through. After you've defined your reason codes and set them up the way you want them to, you're moving into part maintenance. And on the part maintenance screen, let me just call up that same part we were looking at before. I named them with the codes. It made it easier to find them when we were going through our demo. So what we've done, as I said before, we have the on-hold indicator. That on-hold indicator, this is looking very much like standard Epicor functionality. It's basically when it's off, these two fields become grayed out. You can't use them. When it's on, you're required to put in a date and status, a reason code. But these are in our own UD custom fields because we had to do that to get more functionality out of it, more places to check. To address every one of those single transactions individually, we wanted to process it there. So we do take away the standard one. We augment it with better and improved functionality going through that process. And as I said before, we also replicate it down to the site level. So once you put it on hold, date, and here, so you've got that control at the two different levels, giving you flexibility. This site can do something with it. That site can't. This site can buy it. This site can sell it. You have all those types of controls and what you need to do to figure out what is your business model needs. And those flags do work very much. If you've ever changed something like, the costing flag at the central level, Epicor comes up. Do you want to change it at the plant levels? We have that same type of functionality built in that if you set it at the site level, or at the top level, it'll come up and ask you, do you want to replicate that down to all site levels at the same time, yes or no? Same functionality. We tried to make it feel very standard, but really enhance upon the functionality. What's interesting, too, is if some of you are paying a little more attention, you might have noticed in this particular one that I'm working on, I also enabled the negative inventory check. That was another one of our standard solutions. So since it's here and it's on the screen, I might as well give a little bit of an overview for that. So if you're familiar with standard Epicor functionality in the ERP system, you're allowed to set on the part class whether negative inventory is going to result in a warning, an error, or none is how they refer to it, no check. And what we've done, again, is having it on the part class or at the supplier, it didn't give us enough control what we thought you needed to. So we brought it down to the part master and down to the site level. So that same flag and that same kind of functionality is working here, that you can now say for this particular site, we're in site main, if a transaction is about to create a negative inventory situation for this part number, I can either give a warning or I can stop them, or in this case, it defaults to none. And we have done that same thing at the top level of the site. The same flag is here in there. So that's, again, another one of the standard solutions we put out there, just because the class and the supplier seem to be not enough control to really define what the user needs, because you almost end up creating a part class or duplicating part classes for, well, these are all my commodities. that I don't need inspection on, and these are all the commodities I do need inspection on. So that's why we brought it through. And if people want to ask some of the functionality we get asked is when you do a duplicate part, yes, it does copy that part flag too, going forward. Okay. And again, those are the main setup transactions. Once you've started adding these to these, I'll go through a couple of transactional events just to show everybody, but once you've seen it once or twice, it's kind of the same thing in every transaction. It's just the way it works and the way it reacts accordingly. So we look at purchase order entry, and I apologize, but I did pre-populate the transaction just to save some time during this process to make sure I could get everything that I wanted to show you in the demo time. But I will start a new line, and I'll go ahead and standard functionality. I'll create a new line. I'll put in that same part number, that Crawford-10P that we had talked about before. And when I tab off of that, this is the new functionality. This is what's happening in the system. This is why it's a solution and why there's a cost for it. The setup transactions aren't that exciting. This is where it happens. And like I said, it works in every one of the transactions on that transaction list already. So what happened was once I tabbed off, we went out and we looked at the reason code and we looked at the status behind the scenes in the custom table that we said. And on that particular reason code, is on hold, proposed part, purchased, here's the effective date that it was set, but when you go back to the reason code maintenance, it's only a warning, so that's why you're getting warning part on hold. This is basically going to allow me to complete the transaction, but it's a visual in the face to the end user. And again, the key things to remember is it does give them the effective date, just like standard functionality, and the description. So getting creative with not just what the reason code is, but the description, you can help make these a very effective tool to your end users. Once we press OK, I am able to go ahead and create the purchase order and complete the transaction. Now, if we go ahead and look at it from a different point of view during a job entry screen, I'm going to use that same part because on that one, as I said, this is a new proposed part for purchasing. So in this particular case, I know the only few things I set was purchase order entry, requisition entry, and purchase order receipt. Everything else I set to a hard error. So we go through that same type of a setup. Again, this is just a job that I've created with one test part, brought it all the way through. Now if I go ahead and add a new material, and I go ahead and type in that same Crawford-10P, now it comes back because it's set on the reason code itself. Job entry was set as an error message. So now it comes up, gives you all the same information as we saw in the earlier screen when we were doing it in PO entry, but it's a hard error. And it says, OK to cancel. So when I go ahead and press OK, the transaction is canceled. I cannot then add that record to it. And it's because if we went back to the reason codes, it had it set as a error for that particular code. Okay? And again, I don't want to bore people because I can keep calling up quote entry and sales order entry and all that, but it's going to work exactly the same idea based on how the reason code is set up. You either get a warning or you get an error. Transaction is either proceeded once you press OK, or it gives an error and stops you. And like we said, we even did that with the forecast, the NPS entry. Okay. So hopefully that helped clear up any questions, made it a little easier. And if not, we've got some time at the end of the presentation now to go back through it. So that's the system demo again. Just want to go through it and give everyone an overview quickly of the functionality. If you have more questions on specific transactions and how they react, reach out to Mr. Burns or to myself and we can set up a one-on-one session or ask at the end here and I'll try and answer it. All right. So moving forward with it in the conversation point, Crawford Software Standard Solutions, the installation, setup, training, and support. Just because we've had this question come up a couple times as we started going through these webinars with what we developed for Standard Solutions. So I want to make sure we addressed it during the topic today. So the installation, all the solutions are developed using the SDK. So it's a compiled DLL. We will do the install required on the application server and assist you in deploying it out to your client machines when you purchase the software. That purchase also includes setting it up. So I mentioned before we have 2 or 3 at least different sample product life cycles in the system. We'll pick one, we'll bring it into your system, we'll get it loaded up, and then we'll work with your business to understand how to adjust it to meet your particular business requirements in going through the process. But the thing to remember is they're real time. So if it's not set up 100% right there the way you want it to, and you make a change, as an example, when I was looking at that 10P code, right now, purchase order is a warning. For some reason, let's say I wanted it to be an error. I can change that on the reason code type. It's not copied to the part master. It's always a real-time lookup back to the current definition on the reason code. So as soon as I do that look back, and now it's been flipped to an error, the next time you go to create a PO for that part, it would give an error and cancel the transaction. So hopefully that makes sense. But during the setup stage, we will work with you, get everything done the way you need to, as much as we can during that original setup. But we make sure in the training process that your users understand where the setup is, where the maintenance is done, what is hierarchy, because as we mentioned, there is a flag on the part for both the central level and the site level. And there are some Epicor standard functionalities that we are augmenting. So we make sure that during that setup and training process, we're giving you all the information to understand what's the hierarchy, which one's checked first, which one supersedes the other, and also so you know how to go in and adjust them as needed to meet the business model as your business model changes, or add new codes and everything else. Finally, the support. So all the software is sold just like Epicor is, with an annual maintenance contract that comes out. As long as you're maintaining your annual maintenance, you're going to get bug fixes, access to the help desk, and the new enhancements and the new releases, as well as the capability to request enhancements and put them into the solution pipeline that's going through. As I already mentioned, this is version 1.0 of the product lifecycle. 1.5 is already out, where we're doing updates to jobs automatically for you. And 2.0 is in process, where we're doing the allocation of materials based on the status flag. So we already have quite a few things in the pipeline based on customer feedback, based on users' feedback, and you get to contribute to that, and you get those new features and new functionality as long as you're on your current maintenance. All right. Finally, standard solutions. We had talked about a few of them that are out there. Automatic sales order lines, that's the one we're demoing in like 2 weeks.
Steve, this is appropriate because the second question that came in was, how many other standard solutions do you offer? So I guess it's fairly appropriate.
That's a good timing for it. So this is not even the full list.
No, sir.
This is just a few of the ones that are there, because we talked about the incoming inspection at the part level. You actually saw how that feature and functionality works. That has been then augmented out to purchase order receipt and job receipt. Those are where they're coming into play, and then where this flag check us. Same thing for negative inventory. If it's any of the transactions, it's the part master, as required on bills of material. Now, we developed our solution in 9. Epicor came out with it in 10. Ours is a little bit different, and I would say a little bit more robust. We've always found that even though you want it to consume the part as required, so you don't want to actually book the transaction and consume the quantity, and you don't want to reserve the inventory and all the other things that go along with it, some customers still wanted to know, well, it's a washer, but we still expect to use 16, so they could look at it and have it print on the paperwork. So when people are picking their materials, they would still grab the 16 and at least get some number. So we have an informational field there. It doesn't drive cost or anything other functionality, but you still have the capability to add a quantity field if you need to, for reference. And then the automatic sales order, we like that one. I like that one a lot. It's basically, if you've got a unique event, you're doing an upgrade on a regular basis, or you're doing a repair on a regular basis, you'll come down from the actions menu, be able to pull down what type of an upgrade it is. It'll go ahead and add all the required material, part numbers, sales order lines as required, set the price accordingly, and if you want to, override the product group, which is what's going to drive your general ledger. So if this is being done under a different bucket, you don't want it to go into your sales, you can drive the revenue determination also from there. And if you had time, was it 2 weeks ago, we did multi-level purchase order approvals. We did have that, and that's available on the YouTube channel or on the Epicor site, or on our site. Cool. All right, and I think that's about all I had, and turn it back over to you, Mr. Burns, if there's any questions.
Excellent. So I'll make sure we can see my screen. Good. Yep. All right, well, great. Thanks, Steve. It's always great to hear your insight, your experience in the ERP space. We did have a few questions that come in. You had mentioned that the Product Lifecycle is available for versions 9 and 10, all versions. Anything available for older versions?
We have not developed this for Vantage 8 or 6. With people, you really want to be upgrading and staying current, and the tool set is not as robust in Vantage 8 and Vista if you want. So it could be done, but right now it's only available for the 9s and the 10s, and that's all the way through the current 10.2, whatever patch level they're at right now.
10.2.200. So how many standard solutions do we offer?
I think the last number was 11.
I think.
I only had 4 or 5 of them up on the screen. There's about 11, and I can actually, you're already displaying, so I was going to say, they're all in one menu path on the screen. I can actually pull them up.
Yeah, and what I can do, folks, is send you a document that has them all listed out for everybody that's here on the call. And also just realize that if you want to have those discussions, I'm more than happy to take an offline call, walk you through the standard solutions, see which ones fit your requirement the best. And that really leads into the last question that came in today, which is, how are these solutions priced? Well, very much like Epicor, they're sold in with a maintenance contract, an annual maintenance contract that keeps you up on the latest revisions, bug fixes, all those good things. You see my contact information up here. Anybody that would like pricing information, please reach out to me via email or phone, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. So those were the questions for today. Steve, anything that you'd like to finish up on?
No, I want to thank everyone for their time and hopefully answered some questions about this. I know we've had some questions before. What does this thing do?
We have,
We've addressed that now.
Certainly one of the more popular standard solutions that we talk to customers about. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Please visit our website at www.crawford-software.com for more information on upcoming webinars. You can also view all the recorded webinars from our website as well. Our next webinar will be the third installment of the Standard Solutions webinar series. It'll cover automatic lines in order and quote entry. It'll be held on Wednesday, May 30th. So we're doing 2 this month. So please do register. That's another one that's very popular with our customers. That'll, again, be held May 30th from noon to 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can register on the site or look for an email invitation coming from us as well. So again, I thank everybody for coming today. We certainly appreciate your time, and have a great day and look forward to seeing you on May 30th. Thank you.